start, this is a portrait of motherhood, kind of unlike any I've ever seen before. What inspired you to bring this into the realm of cloning and take it in the direction that you did?
Well, you know, the first spark started 25 years ago. I had a discussion with Krzysztof Kieslowski on fate and family, and on loss, you know, and how. What about if one day someone doesn't accept loss, like we all have to sometimes? And it just started in my head this way, and then I became a mother, and the whole idea of loss kind of became a reality of a fear, a constant fear. So I started writing this, and I wanted something that's not usual in loss, like, because there's many films on the subject, but I just wanted something that actually breaks this idea of, you know, just someone that doesn't accept it and go beyond what's acceptable, you know. So she does something that's probably wrong, but she does it anyway. And I wanted to not justify why she does it, but to explain where she's coming from. And the suffering that she goes through, and you know, that.
I mean, it strikes me also as a film about faith, but a film about faith in a completely different way than you would ever expect.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't use that word too often.
But that's what I mean, is it's put in a completely different way than you would expect.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think, you know, also, I was thinking after I wrote it that the film can be also a bit of a representation of also child custody and the pain that is going through a child custody battle and ending up with your child half the time or less, and that suddenly, you know, this pain of loss exists in child custody battle. You know, it's like it's a very big feeling of loss. You know, and somehow the film is kind of almost an allegory of it in a strange way, like a tale about that.
And then did you do a lot of research into the scientific part of the film?
Yes, I did, and the more the years went by, the more I was like, oh no, soon it's going to be not a sci-fi film anymore, you know. Luckily, it's still a sci-fi film. But, you know, I know that it's almost hard for people to understand that it's actually so close to reality, and that, you know, we need to put this concept of this reality in a context that's emotional, because soon it'll be an issue that we might have to deal with, and when we are facing loss, like what would you decide to do, you know?
And then, as far as, were you always intending to star in the film yourself and direct, and then how do you balance the roles? I mean,
no, I thought of casting someone else for the part, and then, you know, it's funny when I always, like, I try to get actresses, and then they vanish eventually, and I just, like, you know, I just end up having, like, to do the part. So, you know, I don't know. Each time I've tried many times to make movies with actresses. I mean, some were like wanting to do it, and then the film fell apart, or something else happened, or, you know. But sometimes I've cast other actresses, and sometimes they just disappeared. You know, it's like.
Well, I think we're very happy that.
No, but I'm not saying they're scared of me. It just happened that they had another job. I'm very nice, right?
Well, maybe it's a good time to ask Richard a question about working with Julie, and working with her as also a scene partner, as an actor, and as a director as well.
It's pretty phenomenal. I have to say, I don't tend to monitor myself too much when I'm working, and I had no idea I was playing such a vile person. But it's great because you give your trust over to a director like Julie, and we spent a lot of time talking through the script and developing the scenes so that they felt real and truthful and honest. And I think the dark side of that character is part of the honesty of life. And actually, this is the first time I'd seen the film, and I think that the intensity of love, whether that's for your child or within a marriage, is an incredible thing, but when it's broken, the damage that it leaves behind is equally as intense, and I think that's a theme that I saw running through the film. But she's a great director.
It was wonderful to direct Richard, because he was really, not afraid of going places that sometimes, interestingly enough, I find that, actors are very scared to play someone who is violent, but not violent to the point of being a serial killer. And, like, actors have no problem playing a serial killer, but, like, somehow it's kind of okay. But when it's a violence that could be in everyday's life, in everyone's life, it gets a little trickier, because people, I think a lot of people are scared of showing that side, because there's a bit of that in all of us, probably, and we have a bit of an abusive side, and all relationship can have a dynamic that can sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes have a little bit of hints of this abusive kind of and anger. Sometimes you express your anger to your partner, or your ex-partner.
And I think you get a sense of the history of the relationship too by seeing what we see in the film too.
Yeah.
Maybe we can open up to the audience now if you just raise your hand, and I can repeat your question so everyone can hear it.
No question. No question.
Right in the front.
One question.
I have a question about the technology and like what kind of time frame we're thinking this was needed. Because I mean, we saw the laptops and the cell phones on the wrist. And I guess what did you envision? Like when did this happen?
The question was about the technology and when the film was envisioned that it was made.
To me, it's about in 10, 15 years from now, and I was thinking, what did change in the past 15 years, and outside of my computer and my phone, there's really nothing. Even my car, I mean, I have an old car, but, even when you drive around, you don't see such a change. The fashion, it's plateaued to a mix of everything, and, it's just that technology, and science is progressing constantly, medical and everything. So for me, it was going to be a minimalist, if you project 10 years, 15 years in the future, it's only going to be a few things, and what comes to mind to me with technology of what needs to be improved is, phones breaking, still computers being a little too heavy, things like that, little things to make our life a little simpler. So foldable screens, unbreakable phones, very small things. It's not going to be crazy, It's not going to be flying cars. Like, I don't see the future, this world of,
I think we have in the back, over here.
How did you approach reading in the writing and performance? Pull anything from real life, talk to parents and families who watch children, and that in your writing?
The question was about the writing, and if Julie had done any research into people who'd gone through similar experience.
Yeah, I did speak to a few people, and I happen to have known people quite young that have been, when I was quite young, that have been through loss of this specific loss, and it was not just inspiring. It was very. I really had a strong sense of what it was like for them, and it's happened also in my family, so it's not just that far for me. I've witnessed that, and I've spoken to people that have been through that, and so it was it's a difficult. I mean, it's the worst thing, obviously.
And right up front.
When you were singing the bedtime story or song, I remembered that I actually have one of your CDs. I guess you had an album out years ago. I remember listening to it many times over. Did you ever pursue music any further, or like interest in that? And that was still your filmmaking in terms of the core, the music and everything in the film?
The question was about Julie's musical background.
Yeah, I mean, I play music sometimes, and but I'm maybe going to do another album, but you know, I do music for my films most of the time now, and this film doesn't have music actually, just the end credit. But I decided not to use music in this film because I wanted to keep it completely unmanipulative about emotions and not make it a melodramatic, sappy. I mean, I don't think the film is sappy or melodramatic. You know, I wanted something very direct about the pain that they're going through. And so music, yeah, I mean, I'm playing music. I don't know if I'll have time to, you know, do another album. It takes time. And also my son plays the guitar now, and I think it's his time to, he's 10 years old, it's his time to, he's taking over, and he's much cooler than me, he's so handsome, and, you know, just, he's the one that's going to take over, so I'm like, you know, I think I'm done with maybe that part of my life, so.
But maybe you can start a band. You can start a band with your son.
I don't know if I'll start a band with my son. I'm not cool enough for him, that's for sure.
Run up front.
For both of you, what did you take away from making the film that was unexpected or surprising?
And the question was, what did they take away from the film that was unexpected or surprising?
From shooting the film? What was unexpected? I don't know. Go ahead.
I think the whole process of the film for me was unexpected, but it was deliberately so. I didn't make too many plans beforehand. I let the text do the work, and you know, I really enjoy being pushed further and further, and that was something that Julie's very good at. She pushes everybody in a really good way, a positive way, and she won't let the scene stop until she's found what she's looking for, and that's the best that you can ask for as an actor, is to just be pushed to the edge. So that was great.
Yeah, I mean, I love to do as many takes as possible and try to different things, also levels, because when we were shooting the film, it was difficult to tell if we were going to cry in every scene. Was it going to be too much? Should we be more aggressive to each other or less? So we tried different things, so I could then later in the editing room kind of decide how the level of intensity. Otherwise it's hard, because if you make a film always intense all the time, it's hard to watch, so you have to have kind of moments that are less intense, you know.
I think you have more than one country involved in the production, correct?
Yes.
And was that decided ahead of time, or did that involve your pre-production?
Well, it was mostly France and Germany, and mostly Germany, really, for the financing. And yeah, I mean, it evolved, you know, Daniel Bull and his company with Malte Brunner produced the film, and Gabi Tana out of England got also part of the financing, a big part of, she was involved from the beginning. And yeah, so it was one of, you know, the European way of making films. You know, there's no real, you know, big studio behind it, or, you know, it's an independent film. So made in Europe, you know.
In the balcony.
There's one embryo left, and then I presume you intubated General Arlington, carried maybe the term, and you always intended to advance the script 5 years in one shot, without showing any of the psychological turmoil that you may have.
Yeah, I wanted to avoid all this. Like, I wanted to just have it clear that, you know, it's 5 years later, it's 7 years later, really. He has a 5-year-old, but he could have had a kid. He didn't impregnate someone like the next day. So he waited 2 years or something. And, you know, I don't like to explain too much. I didn't want to see, you know, because, you know, once you decide something, what is the turmoil of the decision she makes? You know, she's carrying a child. She's not carrying a monster. She's carrying, you know, a child. So, you know, someone else's child. Other women are doing that right now. It happens all the time. It happens to be the clone of a child, but it's not, like, I didn't want to make it like a monster kind of thing. Almost if you know, 50 years ago, if you told people that other women are carrying other women's baby, you know, or taking eggs from other women, like people would freak out maybe. But you know, it's like I wanted to make it like almost like, you know, it's just what it is, you know. She's just carrying an embryo, and she's healthier than Isabel, who can't carry an embryo, and she's going to carry the embryo to term. And she's not, and she's a strong woman, the character of Gemma. She's not, if she makes a decision, she's doing it. She's not, you know, freaking out, you know, about carrying a clone.
Over here. The question, I'll just repeat something. The question was about the possessiveness and the obsession within the relationship, and it felt like a new chapter at the end, and why Julie chose to end the film there when it felt like it could start a new chapter.
Well, you know, to me, the fact that he shows up and that she's presenting Zoe, that means they're at peace with a lot of stuff. Like, I think years went by and he accepted the fact. I mean, the film is pretty radical. In a way, she takes over this child completely. I mean, that's why when I say it's an allegory on child custody, it's, you know, it's a fantasy. If you've been through a child custody battle, now she's 100% the parent, you know. He has no more custody of the child. She did it, you know, through technology, but she did it. And I thought, you know, in a way, his redemption is that he accepts that this child is now hers. You know, he's not trying to break the motherhood out of her. You know, it's over. That time's over. He's in a way he has redemption. She doesn't, because what she did is still kind of a strange thing to do. So I don't know. I just I want James to somehow be, you know, he's at peace with, and also he's a man. He started a new family. The thing is, with a woman, when you're in your mid-40s or 50s, it's much, I mean, it's still technically kind of much more difficult to start a family. A man can start their life again at 50, you know, for a woman it's another story. So, in a way, he's giving this child to her, you know, it's like the King Solomon's, you know, thing, you know. I'm not really religious, but I love that story. And, you know, you don't cut a child in half, you give the child to the mother.
I also think it's a really great question, but I find it wonderful when a film ends with a new door opening, and there's two doors that are opened at the end of the film. There's the new life of Zoe, which has nothing to do with James, but also the unanswered question of should she have done this. I think it's great that you're all probably going to leave tonight thinking, would I? Maybe not, maybe yes. I think it's a really good thing to raise.
Yeah, because I think advances of science are only troubling, like if you tell someone cloning is bad, everyone will agree it's bad. But then when you go through an emotional journey, which is what, you know, in the future, people, it won't be cloning out of cloning, it will be cloning out of something, you know, out of a reality, cloning a human being, you know, something real. You know, then it becomes another story, I think, and we can only talk about ethics when we're able to link our emotions to it. Otherwise, you know, it's just a cold conversation, and I think the film is actually exploring ethics with this human and emotional element to it, you know. Yes? Sorry?
I come from Moscow in Russia.
Yes.
Our part of the film definitely was shot downtown Moscow, and it's not stock footage. Since you are on the street, and James' character is on the street. So the question is, like, describe how was it to film in Moscow, and like, were they like fast enough to give the permission to shoot there, given that Russia is sort of home of clothing here, and
I was surprised not to subtitle. Like, there's no subtitle of Russian dialogue. Actually, I thought there was, but there was not. So,
The German either, or the French. I thought that was.
all the French, there's no subtitle. I mean, it's like, that's the movie. If you don't speak French or German or Russian, it's your problem. That's my kind of movies.
It was really great to shoot in Moscow though. We did a lot of walking
Yeah, it
through
was
that
great.
part of the movie.
Yes,
Up
yes.
and down.
It's one shot. Yeah, I know. No, we went to Moscow, and it was interesting, and I enjoyed working there. It was great.
Oh, up here.
Oh, hi.
Thank you for Phil.
Thank
It
you.
was really very, very, very good.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it. And it's really nice to see a European dispute come to a resolution. It'll take 5 years and maybe we in Moscow, we need to know. What do you hope for the future of film? Because it's so beautiful. It was
Thank
nice
you.
to see it in Europe.
What do I hope for the future of the film? I hope people get to see it. I mean, that's the goal of every filmmaker is getting your film seen. And that that it will reach people in a way that's a little different than a movie about loss or about child custody battle or about something, that it's a little different. I remember as a kid like watching films, and really each time I would see a film that was a little different, it felt very good to me because I felt different and I was miserable. And each time I would see a film that was telling a story that I wasn't expecting, I felt better because I felt I didn't process things in a way that felt like I could share that much with others. And in a way, for me, films was a way to feel like, oh yeah, okay, so yeah, that makes, like I would go see Cassavetes movies, people were fighting, and I just like all of that different stuff was very nourishing intellectually and emotionally for me. So I hope people can still enjoy different films and not, to me, each time I see a film, what really affects me is when I see a film and I have a feeling I know what's going to happen next. It really drives me insane because it bores me, and I wanted to make a film that also is not something you're like, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, like kind of unknown territories for, it's more exciting to me, to do that, and to watch that as well. So I hope people get to see it, basically. Merci. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I think it's a great note. And thank you so much, Julie,
Thank
for
you.
this beautiful film.